So we're going to start with Tullie. Let's go to Carlisle, where Amy and Anna are standing by. We've got quite a few slides to go through for pictures of what it's going to look like. So Amy's got her finger on the button of the slides, and we'll go through those. Nice to see you, Colin. Nice to have you with us. We're going to find out what's going on at Tullie. So Amy and Anna, the floor is yours, and Amy, our Amy, will get the slides up for you. Off you go.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom. Morning, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting us to talk to you today. I'm just going to kick us off with a brief kind of introduction to Tullie, very brief, and ourselves. So I'm Anna, so I'm Head of Collections and Engagement at Tullie, and Amy is Head of Strategy and Capital Development, and she is the project lead for Project Tullie. So next slide, please. Tullie, who we are? Well, we are a museum and art gallery. We've been open since 1893. And we do all sorts of brilliant things. We're going to talk to you today about our future plan, Project Tullie, in particular phases 2 and 3. Next slide, please. So Tullie has a manifesto that we've been using since 2016. We've been updating it since then, but broadly speaking, these are our 3 pillars. So we are the heartbeat of Carlisle's cultural life, or a heartbeat. We use our collections and programs and resources to tell stories and inspire learning for life, and we are a catalyst to connect Carlisle and Cumbria to the world. Next slide, please. So alongside our manifesto, our community board is our key driver for kind of shaping how we programme and deliver activity. This is a very old photo at this point, I need to update it, but our community board was formed in 2021 with a number of members from the CACN network, which is lovely. And they act as a bridge between our board of trustees and our visitors. And the board help us make decisions on programme, operation, but really crucially, they've helped steer Project Tullie right from the start. So we are really excited and proud that Project Tullie is a development that is hopefully really going to meet the needs of our audiences. And that's in large part thanks to the community board and their advice and guidance. Next slide, please. So Tullie's collections, again, this is an old slide now we need to update, but Tullie has a collection of about 1 million objects. It is a huge collection. Natural science, which is designated by Arts Council as national significance, and then archaeology, fine and decorative art, and social history. If you ignore the exact numbers on this slide, but think about the proportions, the proportion of that collection that's on display is absolutely tiny. This is very, very common in museums. This is, certainly not a problem unique to Tullie, but a key part of Project Tullie is enabling us to get many, many more of those objects and collections on display. Next slide, please. So with our collections, we do lots of wonderful things. So one of them is our exhibitions programme in the art gallery, which is one of the biggest temporary spaces between Manchester and Glasgow, if not the biggest. We do 3 to 4 shows a year, covering everything from, as you can see on the pictures, Paddington Bear to biodiversity and climate change to fine art, like Turner, Rembrandt, and then fantastic local stories like the recent excavation up at the cricket club. We had Digging Deeper on and showed those amazing Roman heads. Next slide. And then we also use collections and our programmes for learning engagement. So over 34,000 people engage with the programme each year. Schools, families, young people, community groups, with a really strong focus on health and well-being and supporting our audiences and communities to celebrate and expand their creativity. And then visitor-wise, we have a footfall to the site of around 200,000 and paid visitors somewhere between 40 and 45,000. So big numbers, but we want to do more and be bigger. Next slide, please. And this is where Amy takes over.
Okay, so a bit of background to Project Tullie now and what we're doing. So next slide, please. We, as Anna says, we have been a museum, library, and a school of art. Well, we were founded as a museum, library, and a school of art, and I'll come back to that. But our site is pretty vast. We've got a lot of space. And we've worked with a lot of people who say we can be using it better. So it's a really big site sat within the historic quarter in Carlisle. So basically back in 2017, 2018, we were successful in getting some resilient heritage money. And from that, we created a future plan. So since then, we've been trying to deliver a future plan that identified that the site was kind of in need of about £35 million, worth of investment. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned, a lot of you will know this. This is our foundation stone out on Castle Street. Yeah, we were founded as the public library, museum and school of art. And what the project has kind of quite early on identified is that our site has always been kind of a different collection of campuses. We've always meant a lot of different things to different people. And what we're about is bringing different people together with different interests and making sure we're kind of like real centralized hub in the city, but also in the county and the borderlands. So next slide, please. So we've kind of aligned this with our manifesto, and our Project Tullie vision is based upon people, place and heritage. And people, it's about inclusivity, community, and making sure that Tullie is a catalyst for creative engagement. Place, we're looking at both the site itself and the purpose of the site as the centre of arts, learning and knowledge, but also place, how that reflects on the place of Carlisle and Cumbria within the world, and what we've provided the world in the past and what we can in the future. And then our heritage, and when we talk about heritage, we're looking at our buildings as well as our collections and social heritage. So the project is also built upon growing, diversifying our audiences and building partnerships. And the ambition is to transform Tullie into the creative and cultural heart of the borderlands for the 21st century. Next slide, please. So we just very quickly, this is a different orientation, but as I mentioned, we're built up of a number of different campuses or different buildings. We have the original house, we have the strip of buildings across the middle that was created in 1893 as the library and art galleries, museum and art school. And then in the 1990s, there was the major extension. And what happened at that point was we gained the fantastic art gallery space that we have, and that was provided with significant funding from the Arts Council at that point, and we got a new temporary permanent exhibition space. But what happened to the other spaces at that time was they were kind of put into storage, they were put into back of house spaces, so a lot of the architectural history was lost. So a lot of what we're trying to do now is be able to bring those historic spaces back into public use, because we really see those as the kind of USP. So ideally in the future, we'd like to bring back some of the original art gallery spaces that were externally lit and the original museum space. And we've also got the Rotunda and the Millennium Gallery development that happened in 2020. So a lot of different parts, but what we're suffering from is there's not been a major amount of investment in recent years. So next slide, please. So with the future plan, we worked with an architect to look at the different kind of projects that we could put together. As I mentioned, we identified at that point in 2019, £35 million worth of projects. Now, £35 million is, of course, a lot more now. We're probably looking at about 45 million of different projects, and those ranged from very kind of small interventions in the £2 million mark, or anything up to 16 to 20 million pounds. So but what we wanted to make sure of was that we could respond to any funding opportunities that would come our way. Next slide, please. So I think this is where I can talk a little bit more about phase 2. So next slide is one of the opportunities that did come our way is for those that know our site and know the area that we're in the historic quarter, we've got a number of different entrances coming into the site. One of those particularly being the Rotunda area that was created in the 1990s. And whilst it's great to have lots of entrances so that people can access the site, it can be confusing. And what we decided to go back to is looking at what was meant to be the original entrance to the site, and that's the gatehouse on Castle Street. But next to the gatehouse, we've been battling with this sort of empty property for the last 10 to 15 years. previously let to the university, but in the ownership of the council. So we've been working with the council over the last 24 months or so to take ownership of these properties to see if we can help to leverage in investment into these properties, but also make sure that they can be used in a creative way that benefits the community. So next slide, please. So we've been looking over I mean, it has been a lot of years that we've been looking at these properties. It's only the last couple of years that things have really got serious, and we finally secured them. But we've been looking at different ways, interventions. Do we want to connect the property through to the main site? Do we want to create a whole new entrance? So these are just some of the ideas that we have. But basically, the scheme is rooted in high street regeneration. And what we've been successful in doing alongside the council is securing money from the Future High Street Fund and the Town Deal Fund for the purpose of this phase 2 project. So what that looks like on the next slide is a project of around £4 million, and it's the area you can see here in yellow. And we're looking at creating a new welcome entrance orientation space, access through into the cafe, and a new ground floor gallery and a new retail space alongside improved and increased community space. And as Anna says, we've been working with our community board over the last year. They've helped us with some real fundamental shifts in the plans, specifically the architectural plans. The shop has been in a number of different places. We've been trying to identify if the gallery should be dispersed more, how the collections should fit in here, how we should actually maybe could begin to look at bringing our interventions into this space, and how their needs for community space can work alongside this. Yeah, I think if we jump into the next slide, I'm sure Anna will pick up anything that I'm missing out. But so this is what we're hoping it's going to, well, this is what it's going to look like. Now, we can't do all of Castle Street in one go. We have to, you know, this is where we have to break it down into phases. £4 million actually doesn't, believe it or not, get us very far as we would like, although, you know, we are stretching the funds as far as it can possibly go. But basically, a lot of my time, a lot of Anna's time is spent we're applying for more money. So we're continually like building the opportunities and building this project. But what we'd like to see is a much improved gatehouse entrance. At the moment, it's pretty green. There's been a lot of water ingress. There are a few rock problems in this historic building. So we're putting resources into that and working with Historic England to make sure these buildings are secured for future public use. So next slide, Amy. I think if you want to just sort of gradually move through some of these. So this is what it's going to look like. I mean, this is quite an early render, but coming through the archway there at the gatehouse, there will be a sort of landing point for entering our site in front of our existing entrance. And then at this point, you will be turned left and into the main welcome. So through this draft lobby and into a new atrium area. One of the challenges we have with our site is it's different levels. Literally, you can stand at one point and it rolls down towards the castle, it rolls down towards Castle Street, it heads down towards Abbey Street. So we are very, very challenged with different levels. So making this space accessible is crucial to this project. This one is just the new retail space. So what we want to try and achieve with our retail is more opportunities for evening events, maybe in this space, or collaboration, artistic collaboration, commissions. We do a lot of work as well based on developing product based on the collections and based on local art. So we want to look at being able to do more of that. And then also I mentioned that we've got the new gallery space. So again, a key driver for the project is to bring more collections onto the ground floor, right to the, directly to the visitor as soon as they enter the museum. We need them to feel like they're actually in a museum, in a creative space. So Anna, do you want to just talk a little bit about this new gallery space?
Yeah. If you could just go back a couple, Amy, sorry, I will keep going fast, don't worry. So Carlisle Inspires is the working title for this space. We probably won't use that as a public title. But essentially it's a space that celebrates Carlisle as a city and all the contributions that it has made to public and community life over the years. So these are just architects' kind of renderings at the moment. Please ignore the colours, and also some of the objects are placeholders. So that bright pink thing on the left is not going to stay. That is to represent a deer form. So don't panic if you see anything that looks a bit weird. So the gallery has 5 main themes. We have wild Carlisle, social Carlisle, industrial, resilient, and revolutionary. And we will be exploring each of these themes through objects from the Tullie collection, but also commissions with the public and with artists. And also with the help of some of the people on this call as well. So Colin, Sue have been a huge help in helping us kind of work through all the hundreds and thousands of different stories we can tell in this gallery. So this is your view as you walk into the atrium. So next slide, please. I think this is the other side of the Wild Carlisle case. Yep. So some really, what we wanted to do is pack it with as many objects as we could without being overwhelming, but also introduce as much kind of playful elements as we can. So you'll see the top left there, we've got a flock of taxidermy birds emerging from the case. They'll be flying over your head. So there'll be lots of little touches like that that hopefully are playful and interesting for visitors. This gallery is a gallery in its own right, but also it's a through route for lots of people on the way to other galleries. So that's been a balance we've been wrestling with. Next slide, please. This view is some of the area around social Carlisle. So we did a poll about what people most like to do in Carlisle. Drinking and eating were right at the top, but also things like spending time in nature, meeting up with friends and seeing sports, Carlisle United and things like that, for example. The case on the left is going to be full of drinking vessels from the past 2,000 years. So that will be a nice fun intervention. Next one, please. This view, I think, is going to be, yeah, so this is the looking out into the middle of the gallery. So that central section is going to be exploring revolutionary Carlisle. So we've chosen a number of people that we think have made an impact on the city, some who are familiar, for example, Perseverus, and some who might be less familiar. So those are explored in that central section. And there's also a section where people can nominate their own revolutionary Carlisle person. So we can keep changing this display. On the right, you'll see a kind of drum-looking structure. So that's the resilient Carlisle section. So exploring some of those things over history that Carlisle has really struggled with, but triumphed through. So everything from kind of floods to foot and mouth, that section covers. And then on the left, with that enormous banner there, that is industrial Carlisle. This was probably the trickiest section because there are so many incredible stories that we could tell here. But like lots of sections of this gallery, it will be rotated annually, hopefully, so we can keep those stories moving. But the first one we're opening with on the left is this amazing banner from the National Union of Railway and Maritime Transport Workers based in Carlisle. And this is their parade banner that they're loaning us. And it is just absolutely beautiful. So we're really proud to have that as one of the first stories in the gallery. Next slide, please. So sorry, this is the inside of that resilient bit. Inside that drum, there's going to be a soundscape and projections as well. Next slide, please. And just another view. So this would be if you were standing kind of at the entrance to the Temporary Art Gallery and looking back in. So you can see that sense of height there. So he's off, oh, you can just about see Drigsby's nose poking down there from the top. So Drigsby is staying in place. He doesn't have a lot to do with Carlisle, but there's very limited places that you can put a fin whale in a museum. So he's staying, but we're painting behind him. So hopefully the skeleton, the bones will really pop much more than they do at the moment, which are kind of brown bones against brown brick, which isn't ideal. Next slide, please. And then this is looking into the temporary exhibition and then on into the gallery space as well. So just an idea of wayfinding. So I'm going to carry on rattling through really quickly into the next phase of Project Tullie. So phase 2 will be opening hopefully in summer of this year. Phase 3 will be following hot-ish on the heels. So phase 3 is funded by the lottery, but we have to raise a chunk of match funding as well. And will be hopefully opening in summer 26. The point of phase 3 is mass collection. So we've got some images here that Amy can kind of whiz through around inspiration about how we might put thousands, literally thousands of objects on display in storage, but also accessible for the public. So the idea with this space is that we are, if you keep going, Amy, I think there should be a plan coming soon. So this is just mood board images from here. Here we go. So the phased redevelopment will transform almost all of the first floor border galleries. And the idea is we're going to line the walls with cases and decant 2 to 3 of our stores. So put all those collections on display. And then in the central section of the gallery, there's going to be these areas that you can weave through. So everything from co-curation spaces to reading rooms to discussion spaces and creating and making spaces. So on the next slide, you can see that in a slightly different way. Yeah. So as I say, cases all along the edges, huge floor to ceiling, and then all those colourful blobs will be areas for interaction. Now, what we really didn't want to do was spend £2 to £3 million on a permanent gallery that doesn't then change for another 30 years. So the working title for this space is, if you just go back, Amy, sorry, one more, is the active gallery. And the idea is that these colourful blobs will change frequently from rotating displays, co-curated displays, and just a constant shift. So every time you come, you will see something different. And as Sue said there, real kind of cabinet of curiosity throwback, but in a kind of 21st century way. So phase 3 is still in the kind of planning stages. So lots of time for us to consult and talk to people about it and get some brilliant ideas. But we're really excited about this phase and we think it's going to be transformative for visitors. So any questions? And we can probably stop sharing slides now. Thank you for bearing with for so many slides.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Amy. Weird is good is a mini theme that emerged in chat as you were talking, as I'm sure you probably saw. So just to be clear, 6 months' time, it reopens again with phase 2 having been done. And then if all goes well and the stars align, 2026, probably a bit more closure and you get that phase 3 stuff done. Have I got that right?
Yeah, if I can just add, so it's phase 3 is a two-stage thing. So we've got to we've been successful with a stage 1 application. So we've secured development funding. So we're at the point of developing ideas. And that application, the second stage application goes in May. And we'll hear the outcome of that in September, October. So at that point, that's when everything on phase 3 will really start ramping up. We've not really gone public with, any of phase 3. Obviously, all of our focus is on phase 2 at the moment. So we just thought we thought it would be good to share and show, because as Anna said, these ideas are developing. There's a lot of consultation needing to happen around this active gallery space.
Okay, there's 1 or 2 comments in chat. I mean, I know you've got to disappear at 10 o'clock, so I'll ask a question on behalf of everybody. But if anyone wants to ask a question, just put your hand up. In 6 months' time, if I walk into Tullie House, what do you want me to think differently from what I'm thinking now, last time I went to Tullie House? How do you want me to feel going into Tullie House in 6 months' time?
Wow. This is exactly the sort of space that Carlisle and Cumbria deserves. And that sort of, I think, sense of pride around this phase 2 space, and just also seeing that things are happening, that people are doing things.
Bit of sort of dynamism, a bit more dynamism perhaps.
Absolutely, yeah.
Amy asked, will any of the gallery or exhibition spaces be free to access to try to reduce barriers for the local audience, etc.?
I was just typing on that one, but our funding model relies on us having an admission charge. We couldn't operate without an admissions charge, unfortunately, but we do work really hard to put as many free opportunities or low-cost opportunities as we can for engagement, particularly for local people.
Okay, thanks, Anna. Anyone else with anything? Monique?
What I really enjoy nowadays is interactive museum exhibits. Are there any of those? Because I missed that. They seem to all be display cases.
There's lots of display cases, but also lots of interactive. So Carlisle Inspires, because it's quite a small space, has interactives in the centre, but the active gallery is going to be crammed full of interactives. It's going to be a really, really different and dynamic experience.
Great. Can you also arrange to loan a child, maybe? And I don't mean that in a creepy way. for those of us who don't have children, it's so
it'll be for adults as well. It's not
take a child around the museum is wonderful.
It's not just for kids, I promise. It's all ages. It'll be
but it's great enjoyment if you have a kid with you.
True.
Monique, you're welcome to take my 5-year-old anytime you like.
Okay, it's a deal.
There's an offer. There's an offer.
Thanks, Imogen.
Right, Amy and Anna, I think you've got to disappear to go somewhere else. Is that right?
We do, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you
All right.
very
Well,
much
thank
for
you ever
having
so
us.
much. As someone said in chat, great to fly through all that stuff, and kind of get the big impressions across as well. And no doubt we'll follow the progress of this piece of work. You know, it's a really important part of Cumbrian culture. It's way beyond Carlisle as well. So do keep engaged with the network, and we look forward to all trotting down there sometime in the summer to see what it's like and smell the new paint once it's all put up there. So thank you, Anna. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks,
Nice to see
for
everyone.
you.
having
Thanks for
us.
coming on the
Bye.
call. All right.
Bye.
Lovely stuff. Right. Okay. So that's Tullie. Exciting times going on there. And if you drive past between the castle and Tullie, there's all sorts of bits and bobs going on outside the tundra and people with hard hats, as she said. Right. Let's move swiftly on. We're going to now go to Bridget Rennie, who helps run Mahogany Opera, which is a fantastic organisation that makes amazing things happen, particularly for young people. So Bridget, tell us what the plans are and what's going on, I think, in the next week or so.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Bridget. I'm Executive Director at Mahogany Opera. For those who don't know, we're a leading commissioner and producer of new opera and music theatre in the UK. We work across the UK and internationally, but we are registered in West Cumbria, as Tom said, at Rose Hill Theatre, and we've done over the last 10 years and now into the future quite a lot of our work in Cumbria. So it's always nice to see Cumbrian colleagues here. And we've got a couple of events coming up that I just wanted to tell you about. One of them is, well, just to tell you a bit of background, last year we did an amazing project in partnership with Sandgate School in Kendal, which is an SEND school. And we worked with Kendal-based composer clarinetist Jack McNeil, who I know lots of you know, and Claire Willoughby, who's a Glasgow-based theatre maker, and the staff and students of the school to make a new opera called Roll Up, which is inspired by a contemporary circus. And the young people are involved in lots of all the kind of elements of making an opera. And this is part of our wider Snappy Operas Young People's Programme, where young people get to make music, movement, staging, prop making, singing, obviously, but not just singing, all the things that make up getting involved in music theatre. And it was a great project. We worked there across the school year from November 22 through to June 23, culminating in 2 days of performances in the school. And it was really an incredible experience for everyone involved. And we were lucky enough to be able to make a film with Cumbria filmmaker Sophie Broadgate. And we are now looking forward to sharing that film with the public at Brewery Arts next Wednesday, not next week, but the week after, Wednesday, the 31st of January. So we'd love you all to come along and spread the word about that. We're doing it at 3 o'clock on the afternoon, very last day of January, so we can all celebrate getting to the end of the very longest month of the year, it always feels like. So anyone who feels like a slice of joy and inspiration at that moment in their week, please do come. I'm just putting a link to the event on our website in the chat. It's free, so you can come along to the cinema at Brewery, see the film, which is about 30 minutes. We're going to have an informal Q&A with Jack and Claire from the creative team, so you get to meet them and have a cup of tea and meet lots of people involved, and some of the staff from the school are coming along as well. So I think that'll be a lovely little event. So please spread the word. Anyone who works in music or theatre or any sort of performance or education, or just anyone who, as I say, would like a little bit of joy in their afternoon, would love to see you there. And also, very quickly, we're going to be exploring the kind of themes of this project a bit more in one of our online events. We've got an online series called Meet Me at Mahogany, which we do sort of 2 or 3 times a year, get people together to kind of talk about a theme, usually inspired by a project we've done, but bringing in other artists. So next Wednesday, the week before the 31st of January, the 24th of January, we're doing one of these discussions, which is online at 6 o'clock, so you can join from wherever you are. And again, Jack and Claire will be joining that discussion along with some other artists who have done a lot of work with young people in SEND settings, Shiori Yusi and Greg Sinclair. So I think that'll be a really, really interesting discussion. So anyone who's interested in that kind of work, working with SEND disabled young people and what we can learn from doing that, I think will be a really great chat. And then finally, we are also presenting this project as part of the Cumbria Music Hub conference, which is in Windermere on the 1st of February. So anyone who works in music education should come along to that too. It's going to be a great day. I think that's all, unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Bridget, and thanks for putting the links into chat. I intend to try and get to roll up if I possibly can, because it sounds like a wonderful chance to watch something great and then chat about it afterwards as well. So just great that you're doing all this stuff, Bridget and Mahogany. And thank you for sharing it with us this morning. I hope it's well supported, and good luck with all the events. Thanks, that's great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Bridget. Right, without further ado, let's find out what happened in the inaugural writers group that got together this week. Stefan, I think, chaired it. A last-minute signing, obviously very expensive. Stefan, how did it go?
Yeah, taken off the bench because I'm not a poet, haven't won any awards for poetry, and I'm not Katie Hale. So Katie Hale was due to host the meeting, and we really hope we'll get her back at some point to host future meetings of this new sectoral for writers. And several faces on this call this morning. Monique, Peter, I think you were there, and Sue Allen was there as well. I'd just like to summarise and say it was really very buzzy and very exciting, and it was great to see a whole range of faces I'd never seen on other CACN things. And at core, it just put the N in CACN. We used the session to network in Zoom rooms and let people get to know each other a little better and share their woes and joys around the world of writing. And there were many, many different forms of writing represented. But that's my summary of it. I don't know what you thought, Sue, because you turned up and joined in.
I did join in, and I appreciated Katie had set the questions, hadn't she, for us to think about in the discussion rooms as we broke off into breakout rooms. And so we looked at what does success look like for a writer or different writers, and what were the barriers to success. And then we came back later to think about overcoming the barriers. And there were lots of things put forward, you know, success changes as you go through life. There's a lot of talk about process rather than the goal. Barriers being time poor, having to work at other jobs to get income while you're also writing, since that applies to almost every writer. Overcoming barriers included things like having deadlines, and important to set, I like this one, important to set time aside each day to do some writing, however little time, just do something. And I thought that was very good. And personally, on a personal note, I made some great connections. It turned out I knew Ben Martinoga from another life. I know his mother, and I knew Natalie Rutherford from another life. And also I made great connection with Patch Middleton, who's a sound designer, writer and theatre maker. And he and a colleague are actually coming to me in a week or so to have a discussion and look at some of my resources about Cumbrian folklore, things like that. So the networking bit worked well. And
there was a discussion about various writers groups that already exist, and a lot of about one in Penrith in particular. And I think I saw the seeds of one starting in Kendal, but I might have just been snooping.
Excellent.
So good. I don't know when the next one is, but TBC on that.
Is there an appetite for a next one?
I think very much so, yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure we can get onto that and make that happen. Sounds like that's...
Can I just say one of the things that they thought that the overall network might help with was putting together a list of writers groups. Wasn't it that? Was that, am I right in that, Stefan?
Yeah, sharing of resources and connections to existing groups already. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's good to hear. Sounds like a practical suggestion as well. Lovely. Well, thanks for sharing that, Stefan. Thanks to those that went along to it. I think 18 people went along was what I heard. And I hope that reconvenes and is useful. Lovely stuff. Thank you very much. Thanks, Stefan. Thanks, Sue. Right, last 20 minutes then, we're going to hear from Paul Foster from the Cumbria LEP. Really lovely to have you here, Paul. Paul's the programme manager. I hope I've got that right, Paul, for the LEP, which sounds like quite a big job to me. So Paul has got a few slides that Amy's going to share. And again, linking really to what Sue's just been talking about, how do you actually, as a sole operator, as a freelancer, is there support in the county to help you do the stuff that probably you don't really like doing that much because you're an artist, but actually you need to do to make a living, etc., etc. I think Paul might have some thoughts about that. So Paul, the floor is yours.
That's great. Thank you, Tom. And thanks, Tom, Kate and the team for the invitation to speak to you this morning. I've got just a handful of slides excuse me, to run through, and happy to then take any comments or questions. Just a very quick overview of Cumbria Local Enterprise Partnership. So been around for over 10 years now, originally with the role of being the strategic economic body for Cumbria, charged with making sure that our economy functions as well as possible. So can we move on a slide, please? But in recent years, we've also taken on a delivery role, and I'll come on to some of the programs that we work on shortly. But as I mentioned, our strategic role, we're here to make sure that businesses have a voice, and we're here to represent businesses and hopefully troubleshoot some of the challenges that they have. So some of the current issues that we're dealing with on behalf of businesses are around people, vacancies, productivity, which I think it's generally known that our productivity levels need to improve, and the knock-on impact of some of those issues on how our businesses perform, how profitable they are, etc. And when I say businesses, I am talking just as much around self-employed people, freelancers, as I am around big business. You know, we've got a full range of size of business in the county. However, we are predominantly a county of very, very small businesses, mostly micro businesses and self-employed people. So we shouldn't forget that. There are lots of opportunities, though, from an economic development perspective, in terms of how do we grow our economy going forward? Where is the growth opportunities? Where can we support people to do better in what they do on a day-to-day basis? Also looking at how we work with partner organisations such as local authorities, Chamber of Commerce, or the business organisations. And also we occasionally have some grant funding. And last year we had our Innovating for Success programme, which was really exciting for us. We invested around £1 million in small businesses across the county who wanted to innovate and do something a little bit different. And we've got some new grant schemes which are just going through at the moment, which I'll touch on shortly. But next slide, please, Amy. I mentioned our challenges, particularly around workforce and recruitment, and the slide here just evidences why. We've got a declining working age population, so we struggle at both ends of the spectrum here within the county. A lot of younger people, as you'll be aware, leave the county maybe after school or college to go away for university. They like the bright lights of Newcastle, Leeds, Manchester, London. Quite often they don't come back, which leaves us with a bit of a skills gap, and we don't always get the young people coming through in our industries. We've also seen increasingly in the last few years, particularly noticeable during the COVID period, a lot of people quitting the rat race, retiring completely or semi-retiring in their 40s or 50s, in some cases as they prioritised other things other than income. So that has also presented a lot of challenges. So this culminates in a lot of our businesses across Cumbria having ongoing vacancies. I speak to businesses on a regular basis who would normally manage with 7 or 8 staff, and that would be at their optimal level. They're actually managing with 4 or 5 at the moment to try and get through, because they just literally can't recruit people in the local area. Next slide, please. Productivity, as I mentioned, we are, as a county, quite a bit below the national and northwest levels in terms of how productive we are, which obviously impacts on our gross domestic product at a local level. If you actually strip away the particularly productive areas around Sellafield and its supply chain, and BAE Systems and its supply chain, it's worse still. So a lot of work we need to do as a county to improve our productivity, and some of our programmes are aiming at tackling that at the moment. Next slide, please. And just to mention, on the claimant count side of things, again, we've got very, very low levels of unemployment. So it's not the case that we've got lots of people out of work who we can entice back into the workplace. New figures came out this week, and we're again, as a county, below the national levels, which is great on the one hand. We've not got loads of people out of work struggling to get jobs, but it does present major challenges to a lot of our businesses. Next slide, please. So what do we do at Cumbria LEP to try and tackle some of these issues? So we, as well as being that strategic body for the county, we also deliver a lot of support direct to individuals and businesses. And I'll just mention a couple of these that are most relevant here. So our Department for Business and Trade, that's DBT, we have a business growth contract with national government to support any individual or existing business that wants to grow, that wants to maybe increase their income, not necessarily take on staff, but it could be take on staff. So we've got a range of advisors that are fully funded to go and work with any individual who's self-employed or any existing business or organisation to advise them on how they keep their costs down, how they generate new customers, how they maximise their return on their investment in terms of their time in their business. And again, thinking of perhaps some of the people on the call today, a key aspect of that is how you can maybe better commercialise your activity to make sure that you're generating income from what you do. We also do work on something called skills boot camps, which is helping to upskill people across the county into new trades or into new roles within organisations. Again, a national government contract, and we're seeing some great successes. We've helped over the last 2 years, I think close to 600 people now, upskill and earn more through their organisation or business that they work for. Next slide, please. So I mentioned our business support. You may have seen our branding on social media. So we use the Cumbria Accelerator brand, and the support we have varies from, we can offer one-to-one advice from an experienced advisor. We run peer-to-peer sessions with groups of people or businesses in the same sector. We also run workshops, a lot of which is online, all free. Free to attend. We've got a couple coming up, one specifically on hospitality, looking at the challenges the hospitality sector is facing and the opportunities to overcome some of those challenges. And then we've got a very hands-on in-person workshop actually at our offices just outside Penrith, looking at Microsoft Office and how people can use that to improve their productivity. I think a lot of us use Microsoft Office to one degree or another, but maybe a lot of people aren't utilising it to its full effect. So keep an eye out for that. Details are on our website. So please do have a look and book on if that's something that would be of interest to you. We also have ongoing support for individuals and businesses. So it's not a kind of come to us once, get your support and go away. You know, we regularly secure additional funding. So some of the individuals and businesses we support, we've supported over 4 or 5 years with numerous kind of interventions. We troubleshoot for them on issues that they're experiencing as a self-employed individual or as a business. Next slide, please. Just to briefly mention, there's 2 new funding pots you might have heard of, which have come in to replace the money that we no longer get since we've left the European Union. So both our new local authorities in Cumbria have got money from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Rural England Prosperity Fund. And there are various strands of activity happening now in both Westmoreland and Furness and Cumberland. There are grants available in both areas for things like capital investments. We've just concluded a round in Westmoreland and Furness, and we're handing out around £600,000-700,000 to businesses that want to get new machinery for their business or want to do some improvements to their property. But there are also, under the Shared Prosperity Fund monies, schemes of activity which can build on some of the activity I've just mentioned that we already undertake. So again, additional advice and support for existing self-employed people and businesses. And also excitingly, particularly in Westmoreland and Furness area, we have a new startup business support service. So for people that aren't currently self-employed or running a business, they might be employed, they might be unemployed, they could be semi-retired, but if they're not currently self-employed or running a business, we've got an advice support service there, and also some grant funding to go with that for people that want to formally register with HMRC to say, I'm going to go as self-employed and I want to declare my earnings. So we can give grants of up to £500 for individuals in Westmoreland and Furness. So if that could be of interest to you or anyone you know, please do pass on my details. That programme is literally launching at the moment and will operate for the next 12 months. Next slide, please. So I think I've covered quite a bit of this, other than to say that some of the work we do with existing businesses does look at things like innovation development and supply chain activity. So we're keen that we develop the networks across Cumbria, both within sectors, but also across sectors, to make sure that when we get massive investment coming into places like BAE Systems, that does filter out into local communities, and the individuals in all walks of life can benefit from that in one way or another. Huge amounts of spend coming into the county, I think, in different projects in the next few years, and we're really keen that that money is retained in the county and that everyone, wherever possible, benefits from that. So I think that might be my last slide, Amy, but would you mind just clicking on? Thank you. So that's my contact details if anyone would like to follow up, but very happy to take any questions or comments now.
Thank you, Paul. That was a succinct run through of quite a lot of stuff that you're doing, I think. If anyone's got any questions, pop them into chat or just stick your hand up either physically or electronically. I was going to say, I mean, with all these things, just getting people to be aware of what's on offer is not easy, is it? You know, you're saying it's on the LEP website, but I suspect lots of people probably don't look at the LEP website that often. I mean, if we can help as a network for your people to sort of help promulgate these services and these sessions coming up, then you know we've got an active Facebook community of about over 2,000 and a newsletter that goes out to about 600. So just saying that's something that probably we can do to help get this off there. But my second question, I suppose, follows up from that is, how important do you think the LEP perceives the cultural and arts sector as a sort of, you know, of one of the many sectors in the Cumbrian economy? You know, sometimes it's below the radar. I can remember going to a launch of the 2 new local authorities, you know, a year ago, and it was a kind of conversation just ahead of the new chief execs taking over the new authorities, and there were boxes that people could vote for as to where you think the Cumbrian pound should go. And there were about 5 boxes, and culture and the arts weren't in any of those boxes. They were totally not on the radar. So how important is the cultural sector in all of this, do you think?
So just to take your first question, Tom. So yeah, the LEP has a role to make sure that businesses and individuals can navigate that system, because it can be quite complex. You've got different organizations doing different things in the area of business support. We're very much an independent broker in all that. So people can come to us and know that we're not an organization seeking to make profit. We're a publicly funded organization there to do the best thing for the individual and for the business. So we do a lot of signposting onto the best support available. In terms of the importance of the sector, I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't get the prioritization it should do. It doesn't kind of maybe grab the headlines the way that, you know, 7,000 new jobs at BAE does, or massive investment going into other areas. Well, that's not to say that it isn't important, because I think clearly it is, not least in adding to the already kind of stellar reputation we have as a visitor economy centre of excellence for people wanting to come to the area. And I think there'll be people on this call who will really add to that visitor experience through what they do and through the organisations that they link with. And I think we need to fully understand currently the level of what is achieved through that, and actually better link that in to a wider offer, and also linking with schools and young people as well, to make sure that we're offering routes through to culture and the arts as genuine career opportunities.
Okay, I'll come to Ian in a second, who's got his hand up, but Anne's put into chat there, do you have advisors with good knowledge of the arts sector? Freelance artists often don't have a simple business model. We have portfolio careers necessitating a lot of different income sources, grants, bursaries, commissions, contractual work, gallery sales, etc. I had free local business advice before, and while the advisor offered great basic advice and was a lovely connection to make, their knowledge of how my sector operates just wasn't there.
It's a great question, and I'll be completely honest. We don't, not that I'm aware of, we don't have individuals that are our advisors, which operate through a network, by the way. So I don't know all of them personally. We contract with various organisations. I'm not aware of any that are specifically from the arts background, but I would flip that though and say, taking on board the feedback there, that the knowledge of the sector is important. What's most important when you're working with a business advisor is that they can understand the commercial opportunities that could be there for you and help you work out how to harness those. So they're never going to know more about your sector than you do, but what they are good at is understanding what the value is of what you have and where the potential market opportunities might be, to explore how you can develop that. So I would add though that we can, you know, we'd be delighted to have an advisor that we could fund that could fulfill that role, but we're dependent on people coming forward. We do have people, specialists in the hospitality sector. We do have specialists in the engineering and manufacturing sector. We'd very much welcome that, but we're dependent on people coming forward.
That might be a conversation that could continue after this meeting. I wonder if there's an opportunity there. I'm conscious of time. Let's go to Ian and then we'll go to Kate. Ian.
Hi, Paul. I'm sure you recognise Louise to my side here.
Morning.
Good morning.
Obviously, I'm in the creative sector. I think Anne's question was very good. Kind of covers a lot of what I was going to ask. I'm just wondering from what I know from LEP, do you ever touch on marketing area on how small businesses stroke freelancers actually get themselves out there and gain work?
Yeah, that's exactly what we would look to do. So we've run workshops last year now, online workshops free to attend on marketing, and we've followed that up with one-to-one sessions. So we've supported businesses, individuals from all walks of life with that. That's exactly what I was saying. I think, Ian, around that commercialization aspect, our advisors are very good at that. Understanding how you can maximize returns on what you do and what your skill set might be. So yeah, certainly the marketing side is key to that.
Yeah, because I think artists sometimes are quite poor at that, so it's quite a good, that's quite a plus sign, I think, for what you guys do. Thank you.
I think individuals in your sector suffer in the same ways that many people in other walks of life do. You're very, very good at what you do, but you're not necessarily gone into it from a money-making perspective. You do it because you enjoy doing it. And what we try and do is kind of backfill some of that knowledge and some of that expertise in making sure that you don't have to sit around filling in forms all the time, but actually that you are generating financial benefit from what you do.
Thanks, Paul. Anne. I mean, sorry, not Anne, Kate.
Yeah, I think Anne's point is a good one. And what I would say is that Paul and I met about a couple of months ago now, Paul, originally to talk about exactly this kind of thing. And the fact that Paul is here today is kind of a next step. But I think it's absolutely right that we should stay in touch with you, Paul, as a way of plugging some of those gaps and providing some of the expertise, not necessarily me, but others that we can help bring in to provide that specialist support through the LEP. I think there's an obvious bridge to build there, but we are in touch with the LEP. We're working quite closely with the LEP on a number of things at the moment. So let's just stay in touch, Paul.
Sounds great.
The other thing that I would say, Ian, is that look out for CACN's training offer, which is ongoing and funded by Arts Council. And one of the areas that we're going to provide more support on is about promoting your own work and services and practice, and marketing and audience development and that kind of thing. So please do keep an eye on the website and on social media, because there are more courses in the offing over the next few months that will be announced very soon. And on that subject, don't forget, on the 31st of January at the brewery, it's all happening at the brewery on the 31st of January, isn't it? There is also one of our fundraising training sessions, specifically if you're interested in applying to Arts Council. Ian Tabron, who used to work for Arts Council for decades, is providing some training for us on how to crack Arts Council funding. And don't worry if you know nothing about it, this is the perfect opportunity for you. So please book on and go along if you can. I really, really, really recommend that. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Kate. And thank you, Paul, for taking those questions and giving us a really good outline of the options and also the reality of the Cumbrian situation as well. I think it's really good to have that sort of reality check sometimes. But I'd like to think there's more stuff to come there, and we've got a good relationship with Paul, and that will continue. So thank you very much for your time this morning, Paul. Next week, we're going to hear from a lovely young artist called Anna Clough, a Cumbrian artist who's done a wonderful piece of work involving the proposals for the new mine in West Cumbria. She's created a piece of art, I think it's fair to say, questioning whether that's a good idea or not. So we're going to hear from her. We're also going to hear from Deanne Shawcross, who used to run Rosehill and is now a Whitehaven Harbour Commissioner, and exciting plans for the Rum Story exhibition in Whitehaven. And also it's the Keswick Film Festival coming up. And if you're not been to that, they do some remarkable stuff there in the lovely Alhambra Cinema. So we're going to hear about that too. Thank you very much to Amy and Anna from Tullie who have gone already, to Stefan and to Sue and to Bridget and to Paul for all your time and thoughts and reflections this morning. It's been a busy one. Chat's been quite hot as well. So I hope we've got to everything that everybody wanted to ask. I'm looking forward to the Orchestra in Barrow tomorrow. Those of you that might be there, I'll see you there. Enjoy the weekend and catch you again in a week's time. Thanks, everybody.